Hey everyone, and welcome back to Game Talk Radio. I'm Greg,
I'm Jen,
and this is episode 26.
26.
So we have a lot to get into today, so I'm not even going to come up with some witty intro stupid thing. I'm just
You,
going to go right into it.
you mean you have been?
Oh.
Oh,
Well, at least
burn,
half of
sick
it.
burn,
At
bro.
least they were stupid, I guess. They weren't necessarily witty, but
I'm
they've been
kidding. I
stupid.
liked your intros, and I'm very sad to not have one.
Well, we just impromptu had an intro because we didn't have one originally, and now we do. So the first thing I want to talk about this week is that we knew it was coming this year because they'd kind of hinted at it, and they didn't do one last year. But EA has officially announced a new Need for Speed game.
Hold your applause, everyone.
Yeah, it's called Need for Speed Payback, and it looks straight out of the Fast and the Furious. Why didn't they just call it? Why didn't they just get a movie tie-in and just say Need for Speed Fast and the Furious,
Yeah.
and then just make a Fast and the Furious game with the Need for Speed guys? Because that's literally what this is, except without the name, I guess, without the movie tie-in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It looks okay. I mean, the trailer looks fine. It's another story-based Need for Speed because Need for Speed goes through a lot of different variations. Like there's story-based ones where they try to tell there's a narrative there, and then there'll be certain ones that are simulation. So those are trying to be like Gran Turismo,
Yeah.
and then you've got other ones that are just like the street racing customizable, like the street racing underground culture ones where it's kind of free roam and whatever. Well, this game is apparently free roam, and it just looks like they took Need for Speed, the last Need for Speed story, and just built it into or the last Fast and the Furious movie, and built it into a Need for Speed story.
Right. So it looks like the main protagonist is some white guy, and he's trying to get payback.
Well,
I don't know. I'm watching the trailer, and it makes no sense.
They had like a crew, and the crew got betrayed or backstabbed, and now they have to rebuild their crew and rebuild their cars, and
Ugh.
like apparently there's a evil syndicate called the House.
Of course there
Right. So it's the house always wins as opposed to casinos. I'm trying not to be too cynical with this because it most likely will be fun to play. Like they make good racing games as far as fast and like interesting, speedy crash and whatever. Like the adrenaline rush of the fast racing cop chases, that sort of stuff's all there. But I feel like they're not even trying anymore.
It's like before it was kind of tongue in cheek. Ooh, can like Fast and the Furious, and now it's like blatant.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was about time that Need for Speed fell into the same trap that all the other EA games fall into, which is at one point they were innovators, and now
Sure.
they're just copycats. Like, there used to be a time when Need for Speed set the bar for what a racing game should be, and now it's just trying to play, I don't know, it's trying to imitate whatever is hot in the market, which happens to be Fast and the Furious, which I also don't understand. I'm not going to go on how much I hate the later Fast and the Furious tangents, because I
Well-
actually like the earlier movies. That's what's kind of frustrating about it. Like, I actually really like the first Fast and the Furious, and actually, I'll even say this. This is going to get much gruff from anybody who likes movies here. I actually like the first three. So, Fast and Furious 1 and 2, and then the Tokyo Drift one, I actually thought that was fine. I have no problem with that movie, even though the acting is just awful.
I'm gonna just say that I don't think I've ever actually watched any of them. I've just had no interest. I like 1970s era muscle cars, and that's about it. I drive a Toyota. It's
So
I'm
cars
not
aren't your
ex-
thing, is what
cars
you're
aren't
saying.
my thing, and they've never been my thing. I have an appreciation for very nice looking cars, but I don't drop my panties for them.
All right, cool. Well, that's good. Speaking as your fiance.
You know what I mean, though? It's
Yeah.
like there are some people who, like, it becomes their entire life, and I don't understand that. Like, nothing I love so much that it becomes all encompassing. You know what I mean? Like, obsessive
Sure.
almost.
Well, and not that everybody who likes cars is like that, but I agree with
No.
what you're saying. Like, there's a certain like intensity that goes along with that scene.
And I honestly, I just don't see the appeal. I think it's dangerous and it's really stupid.
Well, I agree with that actually. Like, there's a certain like glamorization that goes along with this sort of behavior,
Right.
which I guess movies are doing that anyway. And I guess to me, a video game, the point of that is to kind of live out your fantasy. So I can realistically drive my car every day. That's why I don't like to play games like Gran Turismo, because it's just realistic driving.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to a game like this, I don't plan on ever getting in a shootout or racing against helicopters or running
I
from
hope
cops in
not.
my car.
Speaking as your fiance.
But what is funny about that is that it is appealing to a subculture of car people that think it's really neat and cool, and like they build these kind of street cars and they think, oh, I could build a race car, I could street race at night. And there's like Dave used to go to those car meets all the time. They never raced there, they just actually get together and kind of hang out. But it's kind of like that. And I don't know, it's fine. I'll admit I was really into the car customization when I first got down to Green Bay. When I first moved down here, I had some friends that had cars, and like I joined like a car forum where it would tell you, hey, this is the type of like body kit you could put on your car.
Sure.
This is how it would fit. Like I did that sort of thing, and I definitely like. And I said I like the Fast and the Furious movies. I like a lot of the culture associated with that stuff. But again, that's when Need for Speed was kind of innovating that thing. Now they're just taking something that's established like Fast and the Furious, and they're just straight up trying to copy it. I don't see anything original in this game at all. It's kind of like a mix between Fast and the Furious and The Crew, like a bunch of things that already exist. So I've already spent too much time probably talking about it.
It's not for me. It might be for some of our listeners, and that's okay. Me personally, I just don't see the appeal.
Well, it sucks. I probably will buy it. I probably will try it out. But
Okay.
so you don't want to watch me play it? Was that what
No,
that face
I
was
have
for?
absolutely no interest in watching you
All
play
right.
that.
Even if it had like story elements, it had like story trailer. All
No,
right.
don't care.
Fair
Don't care
enough.
about those people.
Fair enough. But yeah, so I don't know. New Need for Speed game. They took a year off last year because they felt like they were just doing yearly versions, and it was losing. There's such thing as series fatigue. People were getting fatigued on the series. They needed to like give it a break. Gave it a break. Gave the developer Ghost like 2 years to make a game as opposed to one. And this is what they came up with apparently when they had all that extra time. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Need for Speed.
Apparently just watched a lot of movies.
Yeah, they were like, I mean, I guarantee it's people were sitting in a boardroom and they said, wow, Fast and the Furious is at an all-time high. There's a new Fast and the Furious movie that's coming out or that came out. I don't even know because I don't care. And boom, let's make a game based around, like, it would be just like Fast and the Furious. And it's not like they haven't tried this before. There is a Need for Speed game called The Run, which was the same kind of thing. It was like a story-based,
It's you will know this better than I would, but is the movie that's coming out, is that the first one since Paul?
Yeah, since Paul Walker died. It's the first one without him, yes.
That's because I think that probably has something to do with the fact that the franchise is probably at a peak.
That could be.
Since
it could be
the
pushing it higher.
first-
Well, and The Rock is like the biggest movie star on the planet right now, and he's in it. Vin Diesel's in it, but and he does the voice of Groot in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Which I still don't hear. They must have modulated his voice.
I think it was almost more of a goof. Like they just kind of did it just to say that they had Vin Diesel as the voice of him.
Oh.
Because like Bradley Cooper is amazing as Rocket.
And I don't hear Bradley Cooper in his voice
I
at all
totally
either.
Do. Oh, I totally.
But maybe
do.
I haven't seen a lot of movies with him in it, Bradley Cooper.
Sure.
So maybe I just don't recognize his voice. It's like if they would have gotten like Sir Patrick Stewart or Sir Ian McKellen to do it, I would recognize their voices. But I just don't know enough of Bradley Cooper's repertoire to really hear his voice in there.
I think that might be a testament to him though that he was able to like tweak his voice a little bit so he doesn't sound like his everyday speaking voice. Like he did come up with a character voice for that.
Good voice actors are able to do that. And some people just have a very very unique voice, like Nancy Cartwright, who does the voice of Bart Simpson.
Yep.
Also does the voice of, I think, Ralph and Nelson.
Okay.
So if you listen, you can hear her voice because she just does it in a different register, and you can hear some of the same cadence of her regular speaking voice, because her regular speaking voice is very much like Bart Simpson.
Right.
But she just does it a little bit higher. So if you watch any interviews with her, you can hear her voice.
And it's kind of like the guy from. Well, I remember him as Coach McGurk from Home Movies, but he plays Bob on Bob's Burgers.
Oh, I love him.
His voice is exactly the same, though.
He doesn't change his voice
At all. And the same thing with the guy that plays Master Shake on Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Okay.
Now, he did do Granny in Squidbillies, which was kind of funny because that's very different. He throws his voice for that, but his voice for Master Shake is literally his everyday voice. I actually kind of feel bad for him because you can imagine if you were like working somewhere, like say a drive-through, and he comes through and you start to hear Master Shake from Aqua Teen ordering from you, I would lose my mind. But speaking of Rocket the Raccoon,
yes,
So Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is
He's
coming
not a
out.
raccoon.
Well, right, but that's what his name is.
Oh, do they really call
They
him
call
that?
him that, yeah.
Oh.
Uh, so we talked about this a few podcasts ago about how they had a new Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was coming. Our new Marvel vs. Capcom was coming named Infinite,
Yes.
and we had been speculating a bit about the roster, and my concern was that it was going to be just basically a movie tie-in. So just the other day, apparently, the same person who leaked that Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was coming out leaked the roster.
Yeah, so there's, well, it's two lists. I don't know why they're split.
Well, one list is Capcom and one's Marvel. That's how they split it up. So
Oh, okay. So you read Capcom.
okay, so Capcom first up is Arthur. He's from Ghosts and Goblins. That's cool, and I think he's a returning character. I'm pretty sure he was in 3. Chris is Chris Redfield from Resident Evil. Chun Li, that's from Street Fighter. Dante from Devil May Cry. Firebrand from, well, he was in Gargoyle's Quest, and he was also in Demons. Oh my gosh, how am I forgetting this? It's right over Demon's Crest. And Jeddah, I have no idea who that is. They're coming up
I
with,
don't
now
know who
check
that
this out, Monster Hunter. So there's a character that's a generic Monster Hunter. So as someone who loves Monster Hunter like I do, I find this borderline offensive because it's just Monster Hunter. So what are they going to do? Are they going to have like him changing what type of weapon you use? And I don't know. The whole thing looks stupid. His ultimate will probably be Rathalos comes down and blows fire on you or something really stupid. I don't know.
Jeddah Doma is a player and final boss character from the Darkstalkers fighting game franchise.
Okay, cool. I don't know. I've never really played Darkstalkers.
I had to Google it.
Is Jeddah, is he the vampire looking guy?
Let me find out. I can click this link and tell you. He looks like he's purple. He's got sharp wings.
Yeah, okay, yeah. All right.
He's over 6,000 years old, but he is the youngest out of 3 high nobles of the Macau.
Oh.
Makai?
That's
Makai.
actually that's not very interesting.
I don't know what that means. So that literally that sentence means nothing to me.
Um
All right, so Monster Hunter.
so then we have Morrigan, who's another Darkstalkers character. I know that one. Nemesis, who is the big dude from Resident Evil, like the big bad. Ryu from Street Fighter, obviously. Spencer, I don't know who that is either. Strider is a Capcom character. He's cool. He's from his own game. And then X from Mega Man, which is interesting because Mega Man's not on the list, but X is. So I don't know.
Okay, for Marvel, we have Ant-Man
Mm-hmm.
from the
Which
eponymous series Ant-Man.
now this is essentially what we talked about, right? Like they were going to start having characters that pertained to the movies that were coming out and popular, as
Yes.
opposed to the characters that we all love. But anyway, okay, so Ant-Man.
Captain America, Captain Marvel.
Yep.
Doctor Strange, which I'm very excited about.
Captain Marvel, by the way, is a female character that they're working on a movie for that too.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. So
Ooh,
again,
that's
like
nice.
the first 4 already are all movie characters. But anyway, I mean, let's. Yeah.
Well, so is Gamora.
Gamora,
from
that's
Guardians
5.
Of
We're
the
5 for 5.
Galaxy. Hawkeye,
6 for 6.
Hulk,
7 for 7.
Iron Man,
8 for 8.
Nova.
Now Nova's interesting because Nova is not. So we were 8 for 9 at this point, and Nova, he's from like, because remember Guardians of the Galaxy, they had the Nova Corps.
Oh yeah.
So Nova is like an agent. Essentially, like Nova.
Oh.
My understanding of the character, I don't read a lot of it. My understanding is like all agents are called Nova, and he's like the one who's in charge of like the Earth area. So he goes and helps on Earth and other places like that.
So he's like Monster Hunter.
So he's like, well, kind of, except at least the Nova in the comics here is typically the same Nova.
Oh, it's the same
throughout,
guy?
but it's kind of generic. So okay, so
All right,
anyway,
so they
carrying on.
have Rocket / Groot. So this is how the character was named to the person who wrote the article. So the author's not sure if it's Rocket with Groot assistance or it's actually both characters and they kind of tag team it or
Right, which would be
something like
really
that.
cool.
Well,
have to
I
admit.
think it would, especially if it's Big Groot as opposed to Baby Groot. I'm guessing they're gonna do Big Groot.
I would assume Big Groot with like Rocket on his shoulder,
Yeah,
doing attacks
I
together.
think that would be
yeah.
a lot more fun to watch. Spider-Man,
Yep.
Thanos.
He's the big bad from the Avengers. They're building up to. He was the purple guy in Guardians of the Galaxy 1.
Oh, they're really doing tie-ins. They had this, like, every time I think of or hear something or think about something in the Marvel universe and about how everything's interconnected and kind of woven in on itself, it really is a testament to how Marvel already thought of all of these things.
Oh yeah, it's really impressive the path they started off with Iron Man and how they started building up
Yes.
to an Avengers movie, but when they started building to that, they actually were building to Avengers sequels and where they would take it from there.
I know.
Yeah, and then they did a really good thing
Ooh.
with Guardians of the Galaxy because they introduced Thanos
Mm-hmm.
just enough so you know he's like a man you don't want to mess with, but they don't make him
Mm-hmm.
like the super bad of the movie. They just put him in
Right.
there, and then they don't talk about him at all in the second movie.
No, they don't.
So they've introduced him as a character, so we all know he's out there, and they're building up to him being just like a brutal villain. So I'm pretty excited about that.
And then we've got Thor
Okay, yeah, he's
with
got
his
his own movie.
mighty hammer.
Mm-hmm.
What's the hammer called?
Ragnarok.
Thank you.
Wait, is it? No, it's Mjolnir, Mjolnir or something like that.
I would have
Mjolnir.
believed you if you would have said anything.
Yeah,
but
Ragnarok is not. That's the name of the movie that's coming out, but Mjolnir
Oh.
is like the name of the hammer. Yeah.
And then Ultron.
Who is the bad guy in the Avengers 2 movie?
Oh.
So not that there aren't cool characters. I mean, this is actually a pretty good list, but notable exclusions: Wolverine, any X-Men characters at all, any Fantastic Four characters at
they don't
all.
have Star Lord.
They don't have Star-Lord, which is very interesting.
What the
now,
heck?
now we know Capcom well enough to know there's going to be DLC characters.
Oh,
So-
you think?
But if you think about it, they have two of the Guardians of the Galaxies. Gamora being one of them is interesting because
They needed another female. They only have like
yeah.
2.
Well, in Thor though they could have done because there's a run of Thor going on right now that's a female Thor,
Oh, nice.
which is kind of cool. So they could have done that. But I agree. Like you look at this, Captain Marvel's a female. So I mean, there's
But you're right. There's
you're
no
right.
X-Men. At least X-Men has a decent female distribution
well
of characters.
now here's what's interesting. Now and it might be a marketing rights tie-in issue. But Deadpool, after his movie came
Oh,
out,
yeah.
you'd think they put Deadpool in there because he was in the last game.
Yeah.
And then obviously Logan, you could even do like Old Man Logan and have him in there,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't. So again, those properties are owned by Fox though. So it's very possible that
Oh.
either Fox owns game rights as well as the movie rights, and they had to license it for extra money, and maybe they're saving. I don't know how that all works
Who
actually,
knows?
but it's really frustrating.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun to see. It'll be fun to play, even though I'm terrible at these kind of games.
Well, and even looking at the Capcom side, well, first of all, if you look at this list, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
they
9,
said
10,
there's
11, 12,
one
13.
missing from the Capcom.
There's about 20. There's gonna be about 27. When it's all said and done, there'll be about 28 characters in the game. It was what they're saying like at launch.
Yeah.
28 characters compared to a Marvel vs. Capcom game is kind of light. Like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 had over 50.
Oh, really?
So when you look at this list, there's definitely room to squeeze more in. But I even look at that, and Street Fighter has 2 people from Street Fighter, and there's 2 people from Darkstalkers. Like Darkstalkers isn't nearly as popular as Street Fighter. Why is there only 2 Street Fighter guys? I mean, I'm glad they put in like different ones like Monster Hunter, but I don't know. It seems weird to me.
Well,
And like
according-
Resident Evil, look at there's 2 Resident Evil people. This seems
According
weird.
to this article, it says that they are planning on downloadable content characters. At least 6 that they're aware of.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean that there's not going to be more, but the list that we had 13 Capcom, 14 Marvel, we feel like there's probably going to be another Capcom, which would make it 14 and 14,
Yeah,
as you
yeah.
said.
But
This
there will
article
be
says
and there will be DLC for sure.
this article says that it's more than likely to be Frank West.
Yeah, I mean and that's certainly possible. He's a Capcom guy that they have all the rights to. But what's funny about that is just recently they released Dead Rising 4 not on PS4. So if Microsoft published that, who knows? There might be some weird tie-in rights with that too. You never know like how these contracts come out. So
So this again, a little afterword about this is that this is still a rumored list.
Right. And even though it is the same guy that leaked the actual existence of the game, you always take this sort of stuff with a grain of salt. Although it looks quite accurate. I mean,
Who's telling him this stuff?
well, my guess would be he's actually an internal Capcom guy because he's releasing this stuff like on NeoGAF and on Reddit because he wants his karma and he wants his points and he wants to be known as like an industry insider. So he's going to try to leak this stuff, without
Wouldn't
getting
you
in trouble.
Wouldn't you think if they found out or traced it? I mean, God, he's probably accessing it through, Reddit at work, so his IP address is probably all over that thing.
You'd think so. I guess if people knew his username, because I know a lot of stuff on NeoGAF is anonymous. And like 4chan, I think you could do this stuff anonymously. Obviously, Reddit you can't, but you could make a throwaway
Sure.
on Reddit, and hopefully he's smart enough not to be doing
But
it
if
at
you do
work,
a throwaway, people aren't going to know that it's you. You know what I mean? Like, if
Well, you'd have to do the same throwaway.
same throwaway,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, that's interesting. I hope there's actually a part of me that hopes this roster is incorrect, because I'd love to see like a Logan. I mean, I don't care much for Deadpool. Like, I like the movie, but I think the current caricature of him I'm not a fan of, as I've discussed on here multiple times. But Logan would have been awesome. Like, how do you have a Marvel Capcom game without Wolverine?
True. But I mean, do you think that, I mean, even if theoretically, I mean, the people who work at these places, like at Capcom and everything, they are pretty internet savvy.
I would think so.
Do
I
you
would hope so.
think that this guy has gotten sanction to do these sort of posts
Oh, that's
to create
totally possible. To
what's
create
the
like
word?
a buzz.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
buzz about it.
That totally makes sense, especially because if you just release a normal press release, it'll get its normal chains.
Mhm.
But if you release it this way, you get this kind of subset, this minor group of people that wants to know everything before everybody else.
Yes.
So you create buzz there, and then when you still do the official announcement, you still get all the people you would have got the first time. So yeah, you're
Right.
generating buzz. That's a totally valid thing, and I think a lot of companies have been doing that lately because it's been proven to work.
Yes.
And leaks aren't necessarily hurtful at all,
No,
which
not
might also be
especially
why this person's not getting busted.
something like this where, like we said, like the fact that we're talking about it and discussing it and saying, why isn't there any X-Men? You can't have it without Wolverine and all of this sort of stuff. I think if the list came out and it had included everybody in this leaked list plus Wolverine plus like all the
Sure.
ones that we talked about, oh, they should really have this one and this one and this one. I don't think people would be mad that the original leaked list wasn't complete.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because right now people want to know like who are the new people to the scene, not who has already been in those games and we probably don't need to talk about.
Right.
So we might be surprised if the list that actually comes out as an official release from Capcom is, because Capcom makes it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that list was 25 on each side and included ones like Deadpool and Logan and all that kind of junk.
Right. And maybe they can do that. Like, maybe if it's DLC, they can work out a deal with Fox and say, look, we'll pay you 10% of the DLC price instead of 10% of like the overall game profits or whatever the deal they work out.
Sure.
Then that way they can kind of say, and they could put them as a 2-pack, like, the movie pack or something like that.
Well, speaking of downloading things.
Ooh, nice.
Steam, or Valve, technically, the company that makes Steam.
Yeah.
I don't think they don't really make Steam.
I guess you would say they host Steam,
host
the
Steam,
online
I guess.
platform for
I always get confused
downloading
because
PC games.
I know it's Valve and I know it's Steam and I use them interchangeably and I shouldn't, because Steam is a
the service,
platform for Valve. Regardless, Valve announced their publishing fees for games on Steam via Steam Direct is what they're calling it now. They're getting rid of Greenlight.
Greenlight was the process where you basically would submit your game to them, and the community would essentially vote on if that game should get out of Greenlight and get into the store.
Which has its own host of different problems.
Yeah, I think there's a good side and a bad side to it. It would I think keep a lot of the junk out. But then you also have companies that can just pay people in the community to give them good scores and to upvote it. So who cares? And like they would do things like, hey, if you upvote our game on Greenlight, we'll give you 10% off. Like that was literally a thing companies were doing for a while. So anyway, so it had its own problems.
Right. Yeah. But they're getting rid of that and they're replacing it with something called Steam Direct. And we had actually talked about this in a previous episode about, how much are they thinking about charging? If they charge $1,000, that really, cuts at the knees of some independent developers who just want to get their game published and don't have any capital or any money in reserves to publish a game with $1,000 fee.
Mm-hmm.
So the wait is over. It'll be $100.
Yeah, we talked about this story a few months ago, and they were saying upwards of, it could be up to $1,000 to $2,000 and $5,000.
Ridiculous.
And so they announced that will be $100.
Yay!
And apparently they were leaning originally towards $500, but then when the community kind of spoke up about what they thought, they actually took the fee down to $100. And Steam claims that fee for them will be recoupable if a game makes $1,000. So that's kind of, I think that's, pretty cool. They said they also want to add more human thinking into the algorithm, which just is kind of their way of saying we're not just gonna have a system putting stuff up and taking stuff down like kind of like the Google or the YouTube strike system and the review system. It's gonna be more humanized here.
Mm. Which is one step closer to computers being our overlords. FYI.
Now, obviously, this system, I feel like they replaced a system with some good and some bad for another system that has some good and some bad.
I think with any sort of outside of having a person or group of people reviewing every single game, I mean, that's a bottleneck that you can't get around unless you start to hire hundreds of people, because who knows how many submissions they get in a month.
Yeah. Now Valve is a big enough company where they could do that because Apple sort of does something similar to that. Like they review all the apps that they get too. Like when you put an app on the iTunes or on the iPhone shop or whatever, when you put one on the App Store, like it takes 5 to 8 days for that to go live. So there is somebody looking at all submissions at some extent.
Well, and I think that Amazon has a mantra. The owner or CEO or whatever you want to call him of Amazon created this company wide, I don't want to say it's a slogan, but it's like their mission or vision or what
Okay.
they value or whatever. But the best service is no service, meaning the fact that I never have to contact Amazon is a win to Amazon because everything works as it's supposed to.
Okay.
I only have to talk to them if something isn't working, isn't going right, or I have something that can't be resolved on my own. So they put conflict, troubleshooting, all of that
Sure.
on their website so that I never have to call you unless I am at a complete loss.
So you're more of a fan of the automation system then?
I'm a fan of making the system smart enough to know, should I allow this, should I not allow this? And then if there is a company that says, well, I don't understand why my submission got denied, now I can talk to a person.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I was going to say. Like I love a smooth, streamlined automation process, but the process, I don't even know what you would call that, but the second stage needs to be handled by humans.
Yes.
Because there needs to be someone who can actually look at it and say, okay, I see what you're trying to say. I'm an agent. Let's do this. As opposed to another computer saying, well, what we caught the first time caught us the second time, so
right,
it
and
doesn't
then
matter.
you're stuck in an infinite loop and you can't get out and you can't resolve the issue. That's the thing that really bothers me, when something that you submit gets denied and it won't tell you why. One of my biggest pet peeves is that if I'm filling out a form on a website and I click the bottom, submit button, and it just takes me right back up to the top, but I see no error flagging, no red outlines, no error message. It drives me up a wall because I don't know how to fix the issue
Right.
myself. So now I'm completely stuck, and I go back down and I click submit and it takes me right back up to the top and doesn't tell me anything. How can anyone be expected to know what's going on if you don't tell them?
Right. Well, my bigger concern then also, like with a lower price, I worried that there's going to be more shovelware too. So now anybody who has $100 can just throw their game on Steam. Now Valve claims that they're going to be looking into all of the submissions more closely now, so that they don't just have a ton of crap on their service.
Sure.
Because one issue also, not necessarily that the game is crap, but one issue that the App Store has, that I feel like Steam also sort of has right now, is there's a really bad sense of over stimulation. There's too many products almost on Steam. Like when I was on Steam the other day, I didn't even know they did this. They have like a new release list. I'm like, oh cool, there's like 10 new games that came out this week. No, there's 10 new games in my feed. These are games that they think I would like based off of my preferences. So there could have been 100 new games released that day, and I only got to see 10 of them. So I'm concerned with the price because now anybody with $100 can throw it on there. But on the flip side of that, say it was 1,000. What if the one guy working in his parents' basement, who's been cranking on this game for 5 years, has no money, dedicated all his time to it, doesn't have $1,000? he can't put his game on Steam. It might be one of the best games that we never get to play then.
Well, what makes the shovelware any different from something like Greenlight, where they just get a bunch of people to upvote it by promising them?
Right. Well, technically, I mean, you're right. Like, it would probably cost a lot more than $100 though to get a community to greenlight your game. So it would just cost these companies more money to get their crappy game on Steam than it
Well,
does
it
now.
depends on what you promise them. If you say if you upvote the, I mean, I don't really
Yeah,
know how Greenlight
you're right.
worked, but if I say if you upvote this and get us into the marketplace, I'll give you 10% off when you buy the game.
Hmm. Yeah, well, you're right, and then that really doesn't cost them any money.
No.
So I don't know. I'm torn on the issue. I mean, I'm glad it's cheap, and I hope that they just do what they say they're gonna do, and they're gonna filter through the garbage and make sure that we're only getting like games that are actually games. And I'm not even saying good games. I want bad games to be on Steam. I think that's kind of funny because bad and good games are subjective to the player. So
Right.
I just want Valve looking out for broken games or games that
Mhm.
aren't completed that people are just maybe what if because imagine this, right? Say a company puts they've only got 10% of a game. It's enough to get started and there's nothing else in the game. They put that up there, they charge $10 for it, people buy it and go, "Wait a minute, this isn't the full game."
Right.
And then those people get a bunch of money the first couple weeks and they skip town or something.
Well, also something to keep in mind too is they've got to take a look at, you look at how many games, how many um how many downloads of the game are there, and how many bad reviews are there. Because what Valve needs to do is really take a lot of stock of people's opinions of those games and say, okay, buddy, you have 100 downloads, and 75% of those 100 downloads, those verified purchases or however they quantify that, are 1 star. Like, what are they going to do about that? Like, that to me seems like it should be flagged that something's wrong with it. It needs to be looked into. Maybe it requires an audit almost, where if they see that the number of negative reviews is the majority of reviews, that somebody at Valve will look at the game, download it, play it, see what's going on, and then if they realize, oh, this thing is broken or this is only
Right.
half of a game, it's not even done, we need to flag this as being needing removal.
See, and I'm okay with that. I just don't want them to go in there and like, because if a game has a bunch of negative reviews because people think it's stupid, I don't want them to take it off for that reason. I think bad games have a place on the shelf just like any other good game. Obviously, not as much shelf space. Like from a retailer perspective, you don't want to have bad games taking up space of good games. But I think they're a necessary evil in the market. I mean, there's a lot of bad games out there that are still fun to people. Like I might find a bad game enjoyable, not necessarily a broken game like you were saying.
Right.
Like a broken game, I agree. Like, or maybe it'd have to be reestablished as an early access game.
Well, maybe it's the type
But
of review. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
just don't
maybe
want to.
it's not like, oh, this game sucks because it's really hard.
Well, right, exactly, because there's game reviewers that I don't agree with because they'll say something like, "Well, I don't know, I played this game and I thought it was bad." Like we saw the thing for Friday the 13th earlier, where straight up they said that the game is bad. I played the game for I don't know, probably 10 hours already. I think it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that it's not without issues, has lots of issues, but I think it's pretty fun. So
Well,
I just don't want someone subjectively looking at a game and saying, "Well, we're not putting this on the store because I didn't like it."
well, maybe it goes back to the kind of rating that you do. Like, a website that, well, a company that I love is Lush, which is a all natural cosmetics and bath like soaps and
Oh,
shampoos and
I
stuff.
remember the smells.
Oh yes, I took him to the one store in, what was that,
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. I love it, and the issue with something like soaps and body washes and shampoos is that it's a very personal choice when you're buying these things, because something that smells amazing to one person doesn't necessarily to another. I love the smell of patchouli, but when I use it, I smell like a hippie, which is fine, and I don't care because I love the smell of patchouli. But on their system or on their site, when you go to their website and you look at the reviews of products, they actually have about 6 or 7 different things that you can rate on. So let me actually pull it up, because I think it's a really good way to provide good feedback. So you've got, so I pulled up a skincare. It's a balm. It's got, different oils and beeswax and essential oils and all that kind of junk. But then they've got pros, cons, and best uses. So it's easy to use, it's effective, it's a good value, it's lightweight, it's moisturizing. The cons are it's a little greasy, it melts easy, there's poor texture, it's not effective. The best uses, women, men, dry skin, daily use on the go. They've got all of this. 95% of respondents would recommend this to a friend. It's 4.6 out of 5 stars based on 172 reviews. And the most liked positive review, most liked negative review. And it just goes down the line. Every review has a spot.
Right, which I think that's the point of a review system, is a review system tells you if you would like the game or not.
Right.
And it gives you a snapshot of that. That was my concerns. I just didn't want an agent telling us what games they think are good to deliver to us.
But tell me more, because I don't really download a lot of things through Steam. Is it just when you make a review or when you post a review on a game, is it one rating and it's like 1 out of 5 stars?
It's thumbs up or thumbs down, but then you get to write a full review.
Okay.
And then it tells you how many hours you've played the game.
See, but nobody's gonna read like your 3-page review about how this game is.
That's true, but that doesn't mean. I actually read a lot of Steam reviews. What is cool is on the game's main page, they'll have your reviews, and they'll say mostly positive, mixed, or mostly negative.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll say in the last however many days what it's had too. So there's how many last in the days, and overall what its reviews and ratings are. Because sometimes a game will be good, and then they'll patch something or fix something, quote unquote, and then it actually ruins it. But
I think that it's kind of like at some workplaces they'll do like for lack of a better word, it's a personality assessment. So you fall in a quadrant of, you lean towards the emotional, you lean towards the social, you lean towards the analytical, you lean towards, I don't remember what the other one is, but they make you like circle words and say, oh, this word best describes me, and they're all very obvious,
okay,
leaning one way or another. And I have trouble with that because it puts people in a box. It says, I know that you're an analytical person, so I'm never going to ask you about, your day or your kids or your family or anything like that. I'm not even going to deal with your personal life because I know you're an analytical, cut and dry kind of person. And give you the facts, which is great in a work environment, but you develop no relationship with that person because you're too concerned with the fact that they want numbers and data and input and all of that.
So you're saying that you don't kind of trust reviews even in that sense because you don't know that person would like the same thing that you do.
Well,
because I think we're saying almost literally the same thing.
I think we are. The problem that I have with most rating systems is that they're too singular. I could not like a game because I think that the actual gameplay is bad. You don't like the same game because you think it's poorly translated. Let's say it was a Japanese game and it was translated poorly. My friend over here doesn't like the game because he isn't a fan of RPGs. We all don't like the game, but we don't like the game for different reasons.
Right.
So why wouldn't you have a rating system that would be a little bit more broad so you can see, wow, people rated this as really good or very high marks for the storyline, but very low marks for the gameplay.
That's kind of what you can do in the written part of it. Like people will do like pros, and then they'll put the pros and they'll say cons.
But not everybody does that.
Right, not everybody does that. But again, I think all reviews are subjective anyway.
They are, but I think that if you allow somebody to put ratings on gameplay, text, controls, like all those heavy hitter things that people either,
because some people would care more about than others.
Right. Some people will, applaud this, but I think something that's a negative review I would probably read it, but not the average person would want to read 1,000 reviews, even though they're all making really good points. So why not roll it up and have almost like a snapshot of saying, okay, 89 people said that this game was easy to play through, but 15 people said that it was unnecessary, like there was a bunch of unnecessary stuff, or whatever it might be. I feel like there's a better way to rate video games to give you a better understanding of what you're going to get into.
Sure. Well, and then getting back to the whole thing we were talking about, obviously, with because the reviews we went off a little bit of a tangent there, but the idea is just that now it's no longer up to those like the people in the community to decide if a game gets greenlit or not. It's just up to the people to pay the $100 and get it on there
Right.
because it's going to be handled internally. It's not going to a public forum, which I guess is fine because I think sometimes like the community doesn't always know what it wants. I hate to say it that way. Sometimes like we want to be given something. We don't want to, like we don't want to decide what we like. Sometimes we want to be told what we liked. As silly as that sounds. Now I'm gonna switch this up a little bit on you, Jen,
Yeah.
because I said originally we were gonna talk about this as our main topic, but I switched up just because I thought it would.
Yeah.
Yeah. So since we were talking about it, so there was a story on Kotaku about a YouTube video that was sparking debate because it was relabeling vintage cartridges.
Ugh.
So what he was doing is in his mind. Now, to be fair, this guy's doing it to his own games. He's not doing it to resell.
Yeah.
He's doing it to his own games. He's essentially restoring them. Like, and he says it's something similar like restoring a car or restoring an old piece of art. You could do something to colorize it to bring it better. And so it sparked this big debate on like, is that ethical? Should people be swapping labels? Should people be doing whatever? And I thought that was really interesting. So I want to touch on it because as a collector myself, obviously as someone who owns a game store, I could see something like this being a mammoth headache for resellers.
And that's really where I have trouble, because when you rebuild a car, for example, yes, you might be using the same chassis or the same body or just painting over it, sanding it down, lovingly caring for it, and all of that kind of stuff. But people know it's a reproduction because you're not getting original parts, and it's very easy to tell if you know enough about cars to know that's not the original fender or whatever it is. But this guy, what's he called? The 8-bit guy. He does these YouTube videos, and he's going through this video saying, oh, look at this. The label's all scratched up and whatever. The problem that I have is not that he's redoing the labels, is that he's replicating the labels.
I would agree with that. And I think if you're going to replace the label, there should be a way to tell because on car parts, you can tell if an item's reproduced or if it's original.
Exactly.
So you should know for a fact. Now, again, it's this guy doing it to his own products. So who cares? And as a reseller myself, obviously I worry about things like this. Like if someone brought in a game with a reprinted label, typically that'll lower the value. But also not everything's about reselling.
No, but
sometimes it's about your collection,
this guy eventually something's gonna happen. He's gonna pass away. He's gonna die. Like whatever. Something is gonna happen, and somebody's gonna resell these games.
Yep. Now here's the other question I would pose that wasn't really in this article. If he makes the labels as good as the original, who cares if it's a reproduction label? Like to me, because if you look at reproduction labels now, they're awful. Like I can see them from a mile away. They don't use the same type of paper.
Right.
They peel off. They start to come up early. Like they're made cheaply because people are home making them on like their own printers and stuff. Now this guy actually recommends a certain type of paper, certain type of printer. Like he actually goes through and finds the best way to make a good label. So if it's like that and it's still a replica, but it's a replica that's just as good as the original, I actually find no issue with that. I really don't. Obviously, from a reseller's perspective, you always want to be honest with people. And you want to say, like, hey, this is a reprinted label, but it looks amazing. I mean, if you look at the game in the picture, he's remaking WrestleMania, which is a $5 NES game. So he probably spent more on the paper and ink and print job than he did on the actual game itself. So, again, he's doing it for his own collection. But I look at that and say, okay, is it going to lower the value? There's always going to be somebody who says, and that's the thing about collecting that I find so amazing. Collecting is all about what you personally want to do. Like when I collect things, I collect them mint in the box. Like my NES games, I collect them all brand new, like mint in the box. Not brand new, but
don't you think? I mean, is there is there a chance that any one of those games that you have mint in box are actually replicant labels?
I would say no. Only, I mean, once I watch his video, if more people were doing it he was doing, I would say yes. But the thing is, in the reseller market, people are trying to make as much money as possible. That means when they reprint stuff like that, they're not trying to trick people
I don't
with
know
like
this
really nice
the
labels.
to me the fact that he is actually reproducing, like, if you watch the video, he's creating the labels himself by, you know, downloading a picture of the Acclaim logo, the Nintendo seal, a picture of Hulk Hogan ripping open his shirt, and the WrestleMania logo. Like, he's creating the label himself without just, trying to find a high res copy of that label. But I don't know. It's just, I don't like it when people try to pass off this kind of stuff as being, and I'm not saying that that's what he's doing. He's reproducing the labels himself, and it's his own artwork
Yeah.
and whatever. But it looks like the original, and that I have a problem with. There's nothing to
Okay.
indicate that it's a replicant
Right.
lab or replicated or
L-
reproduced label.
So would you feel better if, say, every like label that he reproduced, even if it was just for his own personal collection, maybe like one bottom corner had like a red square. Maybe there was like a universal tag that people could put on that you would see like, oh, it's a red square, so it's a reproduced label, but it looks really good. Like
Mm-hmm.
almost like a uniform way of tagging the system. So all people who would make replica labels would do something like that. Like say like the bottom right corner would just be a 2 pixel by 2 pixel red square,
There's
you
got to
know?
just be something. I mean, and if you had them side by side, you could, you might be able to tell. Because honestly, unless somebody keeps a box, a game in a box and never, ever, ever, ever played it still wouldn't look this good. But I have a problem with people trying to pass it off as being a true label, because what's stopping somebody from getting all the stuff that this guy talks about in his video, replacing all of the labels and taking them into your store, and you look at them and go, wow, these look brand new, and paying top dollar for them because they're in such good condition, but they're really not.
Sure. Well, like speaking from a reseller's perspective, when it comes to that, I feel very confident that I could sell those still for the same value, but I would have to tell people like if I obviously if I didn't know, then I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
But say I did know, I would tell people, say, hey, just so you know, these are reproduced labels, but look how nice these look. We didn't take any money off because the label looks just as good as the first one. I would say 75% of people to 80% of people are going to say, okay, no problem.
But
There's
what are you?
only
Oh,
there's I
sorry.
was gonna say there's only a small subset of people that would look at that like those diehard must-have original collectors. Most people aren't gonna feel that way.
But I guess it really comes down to the question of, what are you really collecting?
Right, and that's actually goes back to my original point was that the beauty of collecting is we all get to collect how we want to collect. So same with vintage cars. There's actually okay, so there's people who want vintage cars and they will only put vintage parts on vintage cars.
Yes.
Now, but what about this? There's also people that will not replace a part on a car with a different car's part because it wasn't that car's original part. So
Ah,
they'll take
uh-huh.
their fender that's all, corroded and stuff. They'll take it to a body shop, try to get them to patch or fix that fender as much as they can. Obviously, if it's like a fender with rusted through, you can't fix that. Oh, well, you probably could with Bondo, but again, it's up to that person.
Mm-hmm.
There's also people though that take an old car and they completely rewire it so it has a new radio. It'll have
Mm-hmm.
GPS built into it. So like they take an old style car and they modernize it on the inside with the modern amenities.
Well, it's kind of like the idea of, when does something stop being itself? Meaning, here, Greg, I have the hatchet that George Washington used to chop down the cherry tree, which is not a true story, by the way. But let's just say for a while that it was. I have the original hatchet that George Washington used to chop down the cherry tree. But since that happened, I've replaced the head of the hatchet twice, and the handle's not original either.
Right. So
So
they're like, what's original
so
on it?
it's not really. And that it's a similar conversation of, when does something stop being its true self?
Sure. Sure.
Because I can replace the label, sure. You know, it's still technically what's inside the game that matters. But what if at some point I replace that gray cartridge and a new
The
label?
shell and the new label, sure,
Like,
and then
oh, but the inside, I gotta clean up the
sure.
wires and junk in there. I mean, it's like the inside of every cartridge game has guts in it, and you can replace those if you really know how.
I mean, I call it Frankensteining, and I do it quite often actually. Like if you have a really nice box for a game, like sometimes you get a game in a box, and then you get a booklet from another one,
Uh huh.
or you'll get like obviously this is a new level of Frankensteining because you're actually fixing labels in cartridges. But I take the backs off of cartridges all the time. Like if it's a rare game and the back half is yellow faded, the back half doesn't have any of the front label stuff on it. You can
Mhm.
take the back label off, put a new back on it, and then make that cartridge look brand new again. And I've told people that before too. I'll tell collectors like, just so you know, I swapped the back on this, just so it would look perfect. And they go, okay, because there's no
Yeah.
distinguishing feature that says it's for that game, so it doesn't
Sure.
hurt the resale value. But
Mhm.
again, I could see a collector coming up and being like, well, I want one that's got the original. Okay, not
Well,
my thing, but it's cool if it's yours.
and I'll tell you though, like I watched the video of this guy doing it, and he takes off the label, and then he takes out all the guts of the cartridge, and he cleans the what is that part? The little metallic
Sure,
part,
sure, like the
like
board,
with
yeah.
baking soda and water, and he scrubs out the inside of the cartridge. So he's doing almost, like you said, a complete restoration of that cartridge to make it new. But I just think, if it were me, that reproduced label looks great, but it should be known that it's not the real label.
Yeah, I actually, and I agree with that. I 100% agree that they should be tagged. And I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about it. I just thought it was interesting being a reseller myself, but I wanted to share like my point of view is it's an interesting debate about restoring an old game,
Mhm.
because I guess it's the same thing because with a car you can tell, and then
Yes.
you brought up an interesting point. You brought up artwork.
Mhm.
Like, well, people restore artwork. But apparently the difference with that is any restorations done to a piece of art can be completely undone at
And I
any
don't know
time.
how they would do
I
that.
don't either. I don't know how that works either.
Cuz
But
they're in there with like Q-tips and tiny paintbrushes, and they're using like I watched a video of a guy who, what's that face?
sorry, I'm watching the video and the dude's taking off an NES label. This is how I know most people won't do this because it's damn near impossible to get an NES label off clean.
Yeah,
He was
he's
using a screwdriver.
screwdriver. It's all scratched up when
Yeah,
he's
this is
done.
awful. This is like the worst thing I've ever seen. So, yeah, that's why most people wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? Like most people won't go through the effort to do that. But
What was
anyway,
really, was really weird is he's like talking about all the different adhesives you can use. So he uses the actual label, like the label maker, and then he uses spray adhesive and rubber cement, and he was trying to figure out which one would stick the best. And the Avery label obviously has the best adhesion,
hmm,
and then the next is the spray adhesive, and then the rubber cement, because rubber cement you can just pretty much peel right off. It
right.
doesn't stick very well to certain materials, and in this case it was paper and a plasticky outer shell.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, this guy does it really well, and he's thought a long time about how to do it. But it's just, I don't know. I wish that you could somehow
Yeah.
indicate that
Just
it
have a way
was.
to know that it was a reproduction label. I totally agree. Most bootlegs are done poorly. That's because they're not manufactured here typically. They're manufactured like in China. So like when you get Pokemon games, you see the labels, you can look at a Pokemon bootleg and I know instantly it's a bootleg. The average person oftentimes doesn't though because they don't look at 1,000 labels a day like I do.
Mm-hmm.
But you can tell. So unless everyone would go through the effort that he does, you're never going to be quote unquote tricked by it. Now I'm not saying that somebody like wouldn't go and take like a Mad 98, scrub off the sticker and then put an Earthbound sticker over it or try to and then give it to us. We've actually started testing every expensive game that comes in now because
Okay.
there's so many bootlegs and stuff. We have to pop it in and make sure it's a legit cartridge. It sucks, but it's just something you have to do. It's part of the business, so it is what it is.
I mean, it is like what he's doing is very, very putsy. And I just, like you said, like the WrestleMania game, it's like $5.
Yeah,
So if you really wanted to take the time to crank those out, I mean, you'd have to buy all the cartridges anyway to reproduce all the labels.
yeah. And the last thing I'll say about it that I did like that caught my attention though was someone from like a restoration he himself doesn't restore the games, but he like, collects them and keeps them for that purpose. He made a really good point which I liked, and he said that there's something of a story that goes along with that game.
Yes.
So when you have a game, say you have a game with someone's name on it in Sharpie, you have the story that maybe that was your game and your mom made you write it on there because you took it to a friend's house and last time you did you left it there.
Like, Cody, you should put your
Yeah.
name on that.
Or just like on your underwear. Or sometimes you get a game that's kind of, damaged label. Maybe somebody would say something like, oh, well, I had to, this was in I was in a flood in New Orleans and this actually got flooded. I was able to get the game clean, but the label got damaged. And again, would I want that? Because that story doesn't mean anything to me. But no, but it means there is a story to go along with it. And I think shows that are popular, like what's the American Pickers and stuff like that, part of what makes items interesting is a story to go along with that. I do that every day. Oh, a plane just flew overhead and it's really loud. I mean, but I hear that every day, and I tell people stories like with the Maximum Carnage Collector's Edition that I got in. That's an awesome story to tell people. I've gotten people excited about listening to the story about how I got 2 in 2 days, and had never seen one in 6 years. And, so there is something to be told about the story. Or like when I got all those really nice NES games in boxes and people are like, where'd you get these? I'm like, well, here's the story. The guy was from Ohio. He kept all these games mint. And then this guy from Indiana bought it from him. And then he sold them to me. Like there was a story to go along with that. People find that entertaining as well. So there is something to be said about, what would you say that's like the tale that cartridge is telling?
Oh, sure.
I
I mean,
say.
it's its story. It's life cycle. Like you said, I have, a PlayStation 2 that has its own story.
Yeah.
And to me, that's really important. And I'll never, ever resell it because it means that much to me and the people who sold it to me. So,
And me.
And you. Now, the guy, as I watched the video, he said, could I have gone to eBay and bought another Pitfall game? Sure. Spent $5 doing it. And he's like, and it's, to the casual observer, looks legitimate, at least in good condition and good quality. But I mean, he's using like packing tape.
Yeah, I saw, like, okay, when I originally read the article, I didn't watch the video. And when I originally read it, I was like, okay, these apparently look really good. We can worry about counterfeits. But yeah, he straight up isn't even really making that good of labels.
No,
like, just to be honest, and not dogging on him. I mean, it's just he's using Avery label making.
Well, because you really need, and I know the average person doesn't know much about printmaking and everything like that, but I mean, it's its own process. It's not something that you can just do on your home computer or home printer and expect it to look legitimate, because meaning companies and video game companies that make these labels, spend a lot of time and energy into making those labels, that glossy look, the fact that they don't bleed when, they get wet for the most part, I would say.
Right.
I mean, that's a process in and of itself. And the fact that he's using, run-of-the-mill packing tape and had to use 2 pieces on,
right, so
I think it was
seam.
the WrestleMania one, yes, because you don't want an overlap, so you have to get that exactly right. Now, I've done a lot of that kind of stuff, not in this way, but I do freelance graphic design, so this is like right up my alley. So if you turned to me and said, Jen, I want to do this, I want to replace all these really crappy labels, I'd be like, yes.
You could do it, yeah.
I could do it.
You have the ability to do it, yeah.
But the next question is an ethical question. Do I really want to? Because it takes away from that story of the cartridge itself.
Yeah.
And, I just wish people would have more respect for their games in general.
Oh, yes.
Because to me, it's like all you have to do is keep them in a drawer for them not to get harmed.
Right.
That's all you have to do. So I don't understand.
It's very sad to me sometimes when I think about the games that I've seen come through the store that look like they've just been destroyed. And you're like, and some of these games are expensive games that, but again, yeah.
I mean, I get, your mom making you put your name on it in Sharpie, put on the back or whatever like that. And my brother even wrote directly on the label of his Legends of Zelda Gold cartridge when he got it in December of 1989. But it goes along with the story. I mean, but I just don't get how people can treat their treat their belongings with such disrespect. And maybe it goes back to, how you were raised. If you had
Sure.
a ton of money and you got whatever you wanted, you learned that treating your stuff like crap didn't matter because you could just get another one.
Hmm.
But for me, it's like, well, you broke it. That sucks. Too bad. So sad. Like, I'm not buying you another one. Like, that was the mentality of like our house growing up, where it was, if you broke it, well, you should have been more careful.
Well, here's a thought. Here's an interesting thought. If half of those didn't get destroyed, like if everyone took care of their stuff, would it be worth nearly what it's worth nowadays? Because there'd be so many other good copies out and around.
Well, I don't know.
Not that everything's about reselling. I'm a reseller, so I always say have that angle. But I'm also a collector, and so I appreciate a lot of these things as they pertain to collecting, not necessarily reselling.
And I'm not a collector of video games or anything like that. I appreciate video games. I like playing them. And I have a respect for how long they've been around now and still are just as attractive. I mean, especially something like the Atari 2600 people are getting
Sure.
into again. I mean, I have hundreds of vinyl records, which are kind of that. I don't collect them. I get them, but I don't like go to, rummage sales every weekend.
You don't
trying
like
to
buy
find...
every one you can get and then
Right.
trade with people for ones you don't
There's a
have, and like
lot.
you don't hoard them.
No.
Right.
I mean, I have a lot of them, and I should probably go through a lot of them. But, for some reason, I have 2 copies of Fleetwood Mac Rumors, and I hate Fleetwood Mac. I don't know how I got
hate
them.
so much you have two.
So I hate them so much I have 2, just so that nobody else could listen to them.
So now transitioning out of that into our final main story of the day. So we're talking about Nintendo.
Yes.
Now we have more Switch stuff to talk about today.
Uh-huh.
And of course it's good and bad, or as I like to say, that's Nintendo. Because nothing ever comes all good or all bad. It's always half good, half bad for the most part from Nintendo.
It's always like, that's great.
Yeah.
But
So they finally announced the Switch's online service is coming out not till 2018. So you can play games online right now, but they're coming out with like a friends list, like a fully functional online service similar to PlayStation and Xbox have right now.
Right, and right now it's a free limited version of an app.
Right, so you're playing like this kind of free version. So they've officially announced it's not coming out fully released until next year, which is fine, because they're not going to charge us till it officially comes released. So that's good.
Hooray.
And they've officially announced the price is going to be $20 a year.
Which I
That's
think
great.
is great.
That's outstanding. That's less than half. That's a third of the price of PlayStation Plus and Xbox Live.
Now you can get a 1-month subscription, they said, for $4, or a 3-month subscription for $8.
Right, which is the month to month is almost like triple what
Yeah,
you would pay by just doing a year. And it's not like, because even with PlayStation Plus at $60 a year, I could see somebody saying I don't have that all at once. I'd rather pay the $10 a month, even though it's a bad deal. They would rather do $10 a month than $60 for a year. With this, it's $20 for a year. Like, there's no excuse not just to get the whole service.
Right. It's like when you think about parents buying it for their kids and stuff, it makes sense to just spend the $20 now to get it for a year.
Yeah, and so I think that's actually very affordable. I think they're actually making a really good move with this.
It's cheaper than any of the accessories you can buy for the Switch.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like they took us to the woodshed on accessories, but now with the online service, they're going back. I don't care what the reason is. I'm just happy that it's cheap. And now, which is obviously a good thing. So another good thing is that when they first were talking about the Switch online service a while back, they had mentioned that you'll be able to get like access to like one free Nintendo game a month to play. But then at the end of that month, if you wanted to keep playing it, you could buy it, or they were going to take it off the store and swap it another free one.
Well, that has changed.
That has changed. So now what they're saying is that there will be an ongoing access to a library of classic games you can take anywhere.
That is such a smart move.
So they actually listened. Oh my
Yes.
God. Nintendo listened to us complaining about something and changed it.
So it says that they get free versions of classic games with added online features. So I'm assuming that's going to be like a save or something like that.
Leaderboards, most likely, stuff like that.
They cited Super Mario Brothers 3, Balloon Fight, Dr. Mario as examples.
Could you imagine Dr. Mario with online play?
That'd be so cool.
I would destroy people.
But I mean, I think that is amazing that they're going to do that. That they're not going to do this kind of freemium almost where you get, hey, we just loaded Dr. Mario, play it, and it's like, oh, this is great. Well, you can buy it now, but you know, it's just, I like that they're going in this direction because, as we mentioned in previous episodes, that the library of games that Nintendo has is bonkers. Why wouldn't you allow the people who are subscribing to your online service access to those games? It costs you literally nothing.
We've been clamoring for a while. We've been clamoring for like a Netflix type service for video games.
Yes.
PlayStation has one called PlayStation Now, but it's only PS3 games, and I think it's a little high priced.
Yeah.
Xbox now has their Xbox games like thing, but you have to download those.
Yeah.
I mean, you get access to them for $10 a month. You can download them as you want and play them, but you still have to download them. So you have storage issues. So we're still waiting for this perfect service. The one company that has the library that could decimate everybody would be Nintendo. I mean, like if they just did the virtual, like I always say this, I've said this before on here too, the virtual console is the best idea that Nintendo screwed up. I just truly believe that it could have been the ultimate thing they ever did, and they instead, when the Wii first came out, they started trickling like one game out a week. And
yeah, and it just doesn't make any sense.
It's one of the best ideas they've ever screwed up. Now, it's not bad by any stretch. It's really cool. You can buy classic games in there. I think they're overpriced, but you can buy classic games in there. If they somehow come up with like a monthly service where I could play everything that they have access to, I'm not saying every game because some licenses expire, some game companies are gone. I understand that. But any games that they can play, like if you took every game that's in the virtual console and I paid $10 a month to have access to all the virtual console games, I would do that. I would do that in a heartbeat. I wouldn't even question it. And then, I mean, and just have it like a streaming service. You don't, I mean, not that they take very long to download anyway, but that's the sort of like mistake that they made with the virtual console. It could have been a lot more than it was.
Well, and they have an update to say that yes, they confirmed that the monthly plan has been changed to say Nintendo Switch Online subscribers will have ongoing access to a library of classic games with added online play. Users can play as many games as they want, as often as they like, as long as they have an active subscription.
That's awesome.
And it's so smart, and I'm so confused as to why they wouldn't have done this earlier.
Yep. I agree, because Sony kind of set the stage with PlayStation Plus. PlayStation Plus started giving away a few games every month for free. So if you're a Plus member, you get free games. Not the games aren't always great, but sometimes you're like, whoa, that's a $10 game I just got for free.
Yeah.
If I get a free $10 game every month, I just got $120 worth of games for my $60 buy-in price, not to mention the online playability, friends list, all that stuff. It was such a good idea that Microsoft stole it and essentially did the exact same thing. Now you have games for gold, where if you're a gold subscriber, they'll give you free games every month. Usually, Microsoft's still kind of playing catch up with what they should offer and stuff like that. But the better part about the Xbox service is that when you get those, they're always yours. With PlayStation Plus, if you actually cancel your Plus subscription, you lose access to all those Plus games, which sucks. But anyway, Nintendo is got a cheaper price, and if they put a bunch of games on there, that'll be the best of the three services. Just hands down. You'll have the better software and you'll have better access. So I really hope that they look at that and say it's really successful, let's do it. Because you have to wonder if they don't want to do an idea like that because it would kill an idea like the NES Classic. Because you could buy a Switch and pay $20 a month for access to all the games in that, or you could pay $60 for a device that does that for you too. That plugs into the home. So
that you're talking about the NES Classic?
The Classic, right.
Well, but that only has 30 games.
True, and they never change.
Nope.
The way they built it, you can't upgrade or download games to it. But imagine this. What if you sold an NES Classic that was like a Roku?
Oh,
right?
See, why didn't they do that?
Right? Nintendo needs to hire me so bad, right?
Dang.
So they make an NES Classic that's like a Roku, and you can download games right through it.
Yeah.
You can pay $5 for a copy of Mario 3, $5 for whatever. Like that's a money printing machine.
I know.
Just do it, and then you can still have it built into the Switch because it could be like your service. It could be like Nintendo. Let's just call it Nintendo Now or something like that, right? So it's Nintendo Now.
Why aren't they hiring you?
I don't know. I need to work there.
But no, but like, you bring up a good point, because not only is it marketable to people who play the NES, but why not make it like, if it is like a Roku, just make miniature versions of the systems. Make a tiny Super Nintendo, make a tiny GameCube. I mean, it's cute, it's tiny,
so
it's
instead
portable.
Of a stupid Roku player, and you know what? You could even go ahead. I'll even let Nintendo be shameless and do what they want to do. If you make a Nintendo one, you can only download Nintendo games to it. You want to do the Super Nintendo one, you gotta buy the Super Nintendo one.
That is so
Go
preach.
go ahead, Nintendo, and just go ahead and just pillage our bungs like you would with something like that. I mean, that's an idea that's not consumer friendly. It's not consumer friendly at all, but
Right.
it is what it is.
But when you think about it, like having a tiny, like when I saw the NES Classic in person up close, what did I say?
It said it was so cute.
I was like, oh.
You might even have said kawaii.
I said kawaii. It's so cute, so tiny, and it's adorable. But the cord is really short.
The cord's really short. It's really stupid.
Why wouldn't you do that? I mean, that is so
But
so
and here's
smart.
the thing. So what Sony's been doing with PlayStation Now is they've started building it into TVs. So the PlayStation Now service, you can buy a Sony TV. Now that's a little bit different because that's streaming. I'm assuming what Nintendo's doing is actually downloading the games to your system, though. But if it's not, if it was streaming, you could have it built into Nintendo Switch.
Right.
So you could pay your $20 a month, and you could have a Nintendo console that you bought and you pay the games individually. Like this is common sense, everyday, normal, where the future's going sort of technology
It really
stuff.
is.
And Nintendo is behind the thing. But again, I'm not going off on a tangent on that because this is actually a good thing. They changed a policy.
Yes.
That's still part of the good. We have yet to get to the bad of this story.
Yes.
The bad, okay, well the good part of the bad is that Splatoon 2 is coming, everybody.
Oh,
Splatoon 2 is a really fun
right.
game. So I highly suggest everybody play it. The first one I should say was fun. The second one I have not played yet, but the first one was fun. Splatoon 2, they've announced there is a headset that's being made for
An
it.
official headset.
An official headset.
With an officially crazy setup.
Okay, so I'm looking at the picture of this, and here's how it's going to work. You have a headset that has a cord going out.
Yep.
Then there's a box that looks like a squid.
A little squid. It looks like a blooper. Bloop.
Yeah, actually, it does look like a blooper from it, which I guess is probably where they got the idea for that anyway. But anyway, so then there's a little squid. It plugs into the bulbous tip of the squid.
It looks like an arrow, quite
Yeah, an
honestly. I
arrow.
mean, if you wanted to give it a different shape, it looks like an arrow. So your headset plugs into the point of the arrow.
Yeah, and then one cord goes out to your Switch so that you can run the game audio through your headset.
Which makes sense.
Okay. Then there's another plug that goes to your smartphone because, everybody, you have to have a smartphone app to chat with people in-game in Splatoon 2. Well, I don't understand the point of this at all. I knew
No.
when they originally said that they were going to have an app to go through. It pissed me off then, and it pisses me off now.
But here's what's crazy is that the cable, and I don't know which cable they're referring to. I think it's the cable that goes to your phone and the cable that goes to your Switch. Less than 20 inches long.
It's clearly meant for people that are going to be on the go.
Yeah.
Right? And it's obviously very convenient for people on the go because you have your Switch and your phone out and a cord plugged into both and your headphones on. That's totally something
But
normal for people traveling, right?
Isn't Splatoon going to be like an online game?
Yeah, that's right. So you
So
probably want to
what-
be at home when you play, right? So you
Yeah,
can hook
you
up
need
to the internet.
You need your wireless.
Oh, yeah.
How are you going to do that?
Exactly. This whole thing is like just not thought out.
It isn't.
It's so poorly implemented. Now, okay, and all joking aside, I know why they're doing it this way. This is their solution to trying to protect children from predators on the internet. That is flat out what it is. Nintendo's been worried about kids who play their games having issues with people either bullying or soliciting or awful stuff. Like they feel like they're trying to protect kids from the awful side of the internet.
Yes.
I'm actually not. I don't have a problem with that. Like I understand a company trying to do that, but you can't alienate all the other people that want to buy your product and actually play it like a normal human being. Like that's what frustrates me is Nintendo thinks that we're all a bunch of like 8-year-olds who are going to be molested if we go and chat with people on the internet.
Right.
Like that's how I feel they treat us. You know, with an accessory like this is what they're telling us, that they'd rather make us do this bullcrap than allow someone to be called a bad name on the internet. Because when you have the app and someone's chatting through the app, like you can mute them instantly or you can block them or whatever. It's easier than ever. You can do that through the game too. I don't understand like why this has to be so convoluted and confusing. And I don't know. It's just irritating
Well,
to me.
I mean, what are you going to do if like okay, there's there's several problems, but the two that I want to talk about. Number one is the fact that you need to download an app, which
Yep.
makes an assumption that if it is a kid playing, I don't know what age kids get phones. I know that
5 nowadays.
I don't agree with that. I think that, playing a handheld video game is one thing. Having a little kid glued to an iPad, an iPhone, a laptop, that kind of stuff, I don't really jive with, because little kids shouldn't be inundated with the internet and electronics. And I mean, you can see that happen every day where a little kid is reading a board book, which is like those, my first books, that kind of thing, with like ducks and chickens and stuff. And
Yeah.
when a little kid touches the board book thinking something's going to happen because they think that it's interactive like that.
Right.
To me, I have personally a problem with that sort of parenting, because it's like, I don't know what to do with this kid. And I'm not saying that that's why they're giving electronics to kids earlier and earlier. It's because it's just the way that the world works. Everybody's connected right now, including little small kids. That's not the point I'm trying to make, because that's a whole other conversation. But Nintendo is making an assumption that a young child has access to a phone that has the app.
Right.
Now, it may be their parents' phone, but you're also making an assumption that that phone is capable of handling this sort of program so that they can download the app. Well, not every phone, especially like the cheaper models phones or the pay-as-you-go phones, they're not smartphones. So now you're making an assumption that somebody has a smartphone that can download the app and connect to the internet. So you have to have a data plan. And that kid has access to it. Well, what if that's the only cell phone that family has, is mom's cell phone, and mom's at work? How are you going to play?
Yeah.
You can't. The other issue is iPhone 6 users. No, iPhone 7. The one that you have that doesn't have a headphone jack.
That is true. They do give you an adapter that plugs into the bottom, but then you couldn't have your headphones in and charge the device. That's always been my issue. Or you can buy something else that lets you do that. But that was my issue with the phone at first. And he's like, does that happen a lot? We're like, you have your headphones in and you need to charge at the same time? And I'm like, actually, yeah, it does happen to me a lot.
Do you use a phone on a general?
I'm like, well, when I'm in my car, I'm using my phone as GPS. My phone to stream music. That thing will die in about 2 hours. So
Right.
like if I'm going down to Chicago or something, I need to have it plugged in all the time so my phone doesn't die. And I can't have both plugged in. But here's an interesting thing to think about too. So forget about the kids side of it and all that annoying stuff. So when the back to the PS3 and the 360 days, when the 360 came out, they gave you a packed-in headset. Every 360 came with a headset, so when you played online, you could chat with people.
Uh-huh.
Most people, even to this day, on Xbox One and Xbox 360, will chat when they play games. The PS3 did not come with a packed-in headset, and almost nobody on PlayStation 3 talked to each other when they played online because they didn't have a free headset, and so they weren't trained to want to be prepared to use a headset for online gaming.
Right.
So 360 was, PS3 wasn't. You still kind of see that reverberating today. Now the PS4 came with a headset just like the Xbox One did, so it's getting a little bit better, but I see way more people chatting on Xbox than I do chatting on PlayStation. It's almost like it's a generational thing. Like they were brought up without a headset, so now they don't care if they have a headset, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem I have with something like this, you're already having a hard enough time trying to get people to get into a piece of hardware, and you're having a hard enough time trying to get people to do this. Now they also have to download an app. Like, to get people to do something is difficult. To get people to do two things and to jump through hoops is even more difficult. Like, why would they made the process more hard than it needed to be. It's just, it makes zero sense on any level why this is like this. I mean, really, even from the protecting children thing, that doesn't even make sense because they're also assuming that the majority of their customers are young children that can't make smart decisions about their online usage.
I just have a problem with requiring something that isn't Nintendo branded as a mandatory part of your experience.
Well, to be fair, you can use a normal headset and just plug it into your phone.
But I mean, I'm talking about like the actual fact that you need a phone, a cell phone, a smart device, cell phone. Like that's the thing that I have. Like, even though you download a Nintendo-based app, you're still requiring people to have that type of hardware that isn't even Nintendo based. It would be like buying an NES and requiring somebody to have a real guitar. Like, why?
Yeah, but you're right, and they even try stuff like that, like with accessories, and those accessories never sell well.
Well, it's like that My Piano Teacher, that thing.
Sure.
Like, but that you could buy the Nintendo branded thing. right?
But
The piano.
you could buy the bundle, or you just had to have the adapter to plug a piano into it. So as long as you had the adapter piece, you could probably buy that separately back then. Actually, I don't know.
But you see where I'm going with this. They offered you the hardware to be successful with that piano teaching
Right.
software. And if you already had a MIDI keyboard, great, you could plug it in and that's
Yeah.
fine. But they're not going out there and selling you some sort of tablet device or smart device, because to my issue is it should be built into the Switch.
Yeah, the
Should be.
DS and the 3DS had voice chat capabilities built into the system. Why the Switch doesn't makes no sense. Now, I'm okay with having to have a headset plugged in, but then allow me to plug in just a normal headset in and do that. I don't know like why all this other stuff's required. Now, I don't necessarily know that future games won't have that. Like in the future, you might be able to play like Monster Hunter. Maybe there'll be just an option where you can still have in-game chat or something like that. Might be built into the game, but Nintendo,
I just don't get why you're requiring somebody to have a smartphone app in order to talk to people. Why it isn't built into the Switch is beyond me. It makes zero sense.
And there's also only roughly 8 billion other chat programs you can use. So like if I'm going to do that, I'll just download Discord or I'll use Skype. I mean, like if it's going to be better with friends list and inviting friends to chat, it's going to work better than that app. I can almost guarantee that. Cuz Nintendo's not they don't that's not their specialty.
Right.
But so basically what I'm saying is another week, another Nintendo, we'll call it 50-50. Like they just can't ever do everything right. Hopefully one day. Although I feel pretty good about the Switch in general. I think the Switch has been a really good system. So I'm not knocking the Switch. I just think this idea overall is just mediocre at best.
I'm really looking forward to when Mario comes out. When is that supposed to come out?
Like November. This could be their holiday drop.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. I think that that's going to be the game that I'm going to really enjoy. And please let me play some of it before you play.
Well, it depends because it's 2 months out and I still haven't played Persona because I'm waiting for you to finish that. Uh-oh, I just got the death stare. Hey, everybody. That's our show. So thanks, as always, for watching, or listening, I should say. I guess watching if you're on YouTube, because we have just that solid picture and you watch and listen to us at the same time.
You get to see sprites of us.
Yeah, which Jen created, by the way.
I did, thank you.
And they're totally awesome.
No.
Because she's totally awesome, of course.
No.
But as always, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at GameTradeGreg. That's 2 G's at the end.
I'm at Game Talk Jen, 1 N at the end.
And feel free, as always, I always say that, but send us any questions or any messages,
Please
and we'd
talk
love
to me on Twitter.
We'd
No
love
one
to. Yeah,
talks
Jen will
to me.
actually reply to you. See, we're those celebrities that aren't celebrities, so we'll actually reply to you when you tweet at us, as opposed to like when you tweet at Hideo Kojima and he doesn't care that it's your birthday, and he doesn't care that you're in Japan on your birthday.
What a jerk.
All right, everybody, that's the show. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening, and you guys have a great day.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye.